So I think that my message would be, it's one of warning. If you're not going to act soon, you've got a generation of intelligent, passionate, energized young people who are ready to take over.
Thank you. I've been also very interested in how you chose this way to make an impact to corporate world or ecosystem entirely, because I'm also the person that that believes that shareholder advocacy or such a discussion is very, very important here in Japan. Could you tell me how you started up Market Forces?
So we started working in 2013. The reason we started doing our work was because there wasn't enough of an ongoing focus on the role of finance and investment in corporates. So there's a lot of great work being done to protect the environment and environmental campaigning. Usually it's through a political lens, trying to change get a policy decision from a government or a minister or a local politician, and sometimes looking at companies. But what we wanted to do was create something that had a consistent ongoing focus on the role of finance and investment, because no money, no project, right? No money, no company. So we thought that was an important area to focus on. We started working on the obvious things like banks, which everyone can see and understand. And we also started working on pension funds, which gives people, regular citizens, an opportunity to see their connection to positive and negative environmental outcomes, and becomes a source of power and agency. So you can use your membership as a pension fund member, or the fact that you're a customer of a bank, to actually use that as a source of power. And then in Australia, there's a very high proportion of people that actually own shares themselves. It's something like 38% of the adult population owns shares directly. And so what we found is that people were coming to us and saying, look, I've got shares in the major banks. I've got shares in BHP. I've got shares in this coal company or this gas company. What can I do with it? And so from that, we started to work with them and help them to raise questions at annual general meetings, put directors on notice, to hold companies accountable at these big forums. And then we got to the point where we had so many shareholders, we were able to lodge shareholder proposals. So in Australia, I think we must have done maybe nearly 40 shareholder proposals in the last 5 or 6 years. And then, of course, it's a very effective approach. And so we've worked in partnership with Japanese organizations as well to lodge resolutions in Japan as well this year. Of course, we had Sumitomo, but also MUFG this year too, which we were able to collaborate with Japanese organizations on. So it's really useful, and I think it helps. I wish there was more work that was done by the investors themselves to propose resolutions and to file resolutions. We wish this wasn't so much of our job, but what the resolutions do is that they open up the space for a really important conversation, and for the concerns of investors that maybe otherwise wouldn't be heard to actually be heard through engagement and through voting.
Thank you. I myself, I'm 26 years old, and I can say that I'm a verge of millennials and a little bit of Generation Z, and I hear a lot of stories that the young people trying to make a change in corporate world, especially in ESG area, but we suffer a lot, and because we need to talk to C-suite level and persuade management, and that's not happening that much in Japan, because it's as a whole we tend to be conservative, but looking at the younger generation than me, or competent student in universities, listening to what Greta Thunberg is saying, they're taking climate crisis very seriously. What do you have, if you have any messages to Japanese corporate leaders, what could you say to them?
It's a message of warning. I don't think they're going to be able to retain any, if there's a degree of conservatism, which I think is true. I've seen enough of that as well. Obviously, I'm not Japanese. Obviously, I don't speak the language, but we have many Japanese people, Japanese speakers on our team. We work with Japanese groups as well, and so I do get that impression. There's a sentiment in Australia about sort of old, crusty old, usually men on the boards that are sort of relics of the past, and I think that's starting to change in Australia, but it seems like it's also an issue in Japan, with lack of turnover on the board and lack of renewal and lack of new ideas, and that filters through. That's where leadership and culture begins for a company. It's at that senior level, at the board level, and I just don't think it's sustainable. It's not sustainable for the planet, and I don't think it's very sustainable for companies either. Recently, when I mentioned this wave of change, rolling series of actions around the world, I took part in one of these actions, and it was an online rally. And some of the most eloquent, powerful speakers were the youth activists, the Fridays for Future activists who joined. There's a lot of energy in that movement, but there's also among that many, many smart people. And I think the heads of Japanese companies that are resistant on climate change should fear those people, because the moment they tap into something that is genuinely and demonstrably powerful that they can do to force change, that change is going to come very soon, very rapidly. So I think that my message would be, it's one of warning. If you're not going to act soon, you've got a generation of intelligent, passionate, energized young people who are ready to take over.